Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I'm a software engineer and often do coding on my laptop at Starbucks for a few hours since it has a chill atmosphere and I meet a lot of my co-workers there. And I'm also considered a regular. This story, I was sitting at Starbucks with my laptop like usual, and at the front door, the entitled mother and kid walked in. Now, as the entitled mother and kid walk in the door, the entitled kid looks at what I'm doing on my laptop. "What are you doing?" Work." "Cool. Can the laptop play Fortnite?" It was a gaming laptop, so the question made sense. "Yeah, it can." "Oh, can I play Fortnite in it?" "Sorry, kiddo, I have some work to do." "Mommy, this guy isn't letting me play Fortnite." At this point, the entire coffee shop and staff are looking at this situation. "How dare you deny my child's enjoyment?" "Yes, I'm actually serious. She said this." "Ma'am, I just told your son that he cannot play on my laptop." "My little angel deserves to play whatever game he wants. And my husband is..." "Honestly, I don't remember this part." "Ma'am, I don't care what your husband is. I am not going to give you my laptop." "Mommy, I wanna play." "If you don't give my child the laptop, I will call the cops on you." The nice barista interrupts. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the building." "I won't leave until I get this laptop. This little brat, I'm 23 by the way, doesn't deserve such a fancy machine." "Excuse me? By the way, you're screaming and I'm surprised your husband hasn't gotten a divorce yet." Suddenly, the entitled mother's face turns into a red, hot tomato, and she dives and grabs my laptop. I then try to grab the laptop and the entitled mom kicks me in the face and drops it. At this point, I'm looking at my laptop with a bloody nose, and all I see is its broken LCD panel. Keep in mind that this was a Razer Plate Pro and it was incredibly expensive. At this point, I lost it. "What the heck, you stupid witch? I am calling the cops on you." "Shut up, you racist fat." Racist term towards Indian. The barista tells her, "Ma'am, the police have been called and are on their way. Don't you leave the premises." Off in the distance, I see one of the other baristas closing the door. The barista adds, "And by the way, all of this is on tape, so you ain't going anywhere, honey." About 5 minutes later, the police showed up and the entitled mother was arrested for assault, property damage, and theft while the kid was picked up by his father, who apologized to me for his wife's actions. I pressed charges and won the settlement, and the entitled mother got sentenced to 3 months in prison and a $4,000 fine. Obligatory. Not my revenge, but it's so good it has to be shared. The friend wrote this, so it's in the first person. So first of all, I'm on mobile, so I apologize for the way the post looks. This happened in mid-January of last year. My husband and I have a 2-year-old son and have been living in an apartment of the sort for a few years before he was born. For a very long time, we had nice neighbors who understood that if they played music or anything of that sort, it would need to be low because the walls were paper thin. Seriously, you could hear footsteps someday, and if you put on the TV, it could be heard on both sides. It was okay though. See, our neighbors lived there for a very long time. We could have conversations through the walls if we wanted, but they were considerate of me and my husband if we were doing our marital duties, which we learned to be quiet about. The point is, they were nice. But Benny's husband inherited around $300,000 and they bought a house in the suburbs, which left our neighbor's old apartment empty for a while until these jerks moved in. I'll call them Jerk 1 and 2. Jerk 1 and 2 were fresh out of college and liked to have loud parties that consisted of many other loud things. I had a not even 6 months old child and he needed to sleep, along with my husband who worked 7 to 6 each day at a time. He's a teacher. My first attempt at asking them to quiet down was not well received, as they called me a hag and proceeded to turn up the music louder. So I called the cops. The cops knock on their door and they ask the guys to turn the music off, so they finally comply. I can tell they are pissed because I keep hearing my name and swearing in the same sentence. So the issue. The guys know who called the police on them, and so they start terrorizing me during the day, stealing my parking space, playing noisy videos loudly through and up to the walls, and have huge parties, ensuring they wake me up, my husband, and my child. I do not like being kept up until 4 o'clock in the morning because my baby is having a fit due to the loud music. I decided to call a landlord who basically told me that if I had a problem with them, I should handle it myself since he had better things to do and they were paying high rent for the apartment. So that is what I did. I handled it myself. Instead of sleeping like a normal person, I bought some enormous speakers and put them up against the wall. The wall, as you already know, doesn't keep out any noise. I waited until they either passed out or turned off the music so they could get a little sleep. And when the guests started to leave, I started playing loud nursery rhymes. My husband and child are having a blast. The child is loving it, as he slept during the day when the two jerks were at work. As for jerk 1 and 2, they ended up getting pissed and telling us that they would call the cops on us if we didn't turn that lame stuff off. We did what they did. We turned up the volume and waited for the cops to show up. The luck we had was the same cop who we first called. He listened to our story, laughed, and then went to jerk 1 and 2 next door with orders that if they played music loud again, they would be arrested for disturbing the peace. The jerks still didn't learn their lesson. And the day after, as my husband is going to work, jerk 1 begins arguing with him and punching him a few times. Jerk 2 thinks it's hilarious and records the whole thing, spewing insults the entire time. Now my husband doesn't fight because if he did, he could get in trouble with his job. So after being assaulted by a man who clearly didn't realize the consequences, the cops were called by me. This resulted in jerk 1 being taken into custody and charged with assault and battery, with jerk 2 being charged with abetting. Here is a juicy part. Jerk 2 was on probation for having drugs of some sort, and it got him thrown back in jail. As for jerk 1, he got off easy enough, except he was evicted by my landlord. We moved out a few months later, and as far as I know, it hasn't been re-rented out yet due to the wall problem. Maya is a good friend of mine. She's a sweet and caring mother of 2 young children. She is also a widow and was an illegal immigrant. Please, let's not make this into a diatribe about immigration laws, okay? That's for another forum. Just sit back and listen to her story, please. She came over here in early 2008 with her husband and 1-year-old daughter, and she was pregnant with her second. He worked long hours as a field worker, often 60 to 70 hours a week, and may have been in this country for maybe half a year when disaster struck. Her husband was killed in an automobile crash on the way to work one day. She did what she had to do. She got a job at a local donut shop and cafe. At first, she was happy because everyone but the owner was an immigrant and she had much in common with her co-workers. And the boss told her that she could work many hours, which she really needed. But it quickly became apparent that there was a dark underside to this job. The owner would only hire illegals. He told me that if they would work hard for him, he'd take care of them. But if they didn't, he'd call immigration and they would be deported. Then he told them that they all had to work 48 hours a week, and he didn't believe in overtime. He scheduled them for 6 days a week, regular time, and there were no sick days or vacation days. He came to me and asked what to do, and I informed her that what the boss was doing was illegal, that he was violating Department of Labor regulations, and he was counting on her fear to keep her quiet. And she did one of the bravest things I've ever seen in my life. She made that call to DOL, knowing that she could get fired, knowing that she and her children could get deported. Well, the DOL came down and did an investigation and found that the boss owed his employees over $27,000 for the time in question. The boss reached an agreement that he would pay all his employees the back wages that they were owed by an agreed upon date. And this is the part that sends them to federal prison. He calls each employee one at a time, into his office and he hands them a check for the overtime they are owed. For each employee, it's over $3,300. He tells him to endorse the check because he needs to photocopy it to send to the DOL. They comply. He copies it, and then he leans over and runs it through the shredder. He tells them all that if anyone complains to the feds, they will all get deported. Now go back to work. And he has a brass balls to send those copies to labor. Total arrogance on his part, don't you agree? She comes to me crying saying that she needs that money, and what can she do now? Well folks, this piece of crap is going down. So I'm the one who drops the dime on Mr. Jerk. The local paper hack carried the story when he'd agreed to the restitution. So it was only a matter of a few clicks to find the pertinent information I needed. I called the department's office in our state capital and was transferred to the original investigators. I explained to them what Maya had told me and her fears if she complained. They were incredulous at his audacity and vowed to look it up. Usually the Fed machine grinds slowly, if at all. But this was too much for the DOL. In just 2 months, a federal grand jury handed down a 10-count indictment for concealment by trick and making false statements to the US Department of Labor, and for willful failure to pay overtime to his employees. Super boss. It turns out that a conviction for concealment by trick and making false statements carries a maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment and a $250,000 fine or both. A conviction for willful failure to pay overtime carries a maximum penalty of 6 months imprisonment, a $10,000 fine or both. The judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison. I don't know if he served the whole sentence, but I bet he never does that again. Postscript to the story. The boss went to jail at the end of 2011. Maya and her co-workers stayed on at the Donut Cafe, which was run fairly, I might add, by the boss's wife. No one was deported. I don't know about the others, but Maya became a US citizen in the fall of 2016. She has since remarried and the kids are doing well in school. She now works as a secretary at a local company, making far more than she ever did slinging donuts. I am very proud of her. At the sandwich shop that I worked at many years ago, we had a young man I'll call Jason, 18-ish, who was a known thief/vagrant in the area. He came into our sandwich shop many times, stole bottles of soda out of our cooler and chips off of our rack, and he would dash out of the door. And twice we caught him in person and on camera stealing our tip jar. We actually had to train our employees at that location to only leave a single dollar bill in the tip jar because it got stolen so often. We had Jason's picture in the back with a notice to employees not to serve him. One day, Jason came in and put 6 chocolate milks in his backpack before my coworker could come out of the kitchen. He pretended to order a sandwich to get her to go to the end of the counter and start cutting the bread. He then wandered over to where the cookie display was, grabbed a handful of cash out of the tip jar, and dashed out of the store. She had forgotten to empty the tip jar, and there were easily $30 or more in there that day. Because I knew his name and we had seen him in the area so often, I called the police and said that I wanted to legally trespass on him from our store. Even the police knew who he was. A few days later, they brought in a signed trespass notice and told me that he had been informed that he was not allowed to set foot in our store for a whole year. If he enters our store again, they told us to call them, and they could legally arrest him. We would always have the security footage to prove that he had broken the trespass order. About a month later, I was working the store solo when Jason and an older man came in. I looked Jason in the eyes, and I told him, "You're not supposed to be in here." I asked him to leave. The old man says, "It's okay, I'm his father." For a second, I'm thinking his father is bringing him to apologize and pay back all the stolen stuff. But boy, was I wrong. Sir, Jason is legally trespassing in his store. He has stolen hundreds of dollars worth of product from us, including our tip jars. We have him on camera. He's legally not allowed to be in this building. It's okay, I'm his father. He's not going to steal anything with me here. Sir, he needs to leave now, or I'm going to call the police. Can't you make an exception? Only if he pays back for every time he's stolen and apologizes. Then maybe I'll consider not to call the police on him. Come on, he can't do that. He's broke. I'm buying him lunch as a treat today. Either he pays or leaves. I am calling the cops to let them know he violated his trespass. Why can't he just order some food? I'm his father. I'll make sure he doesn't steal anything, I promise. I just turn and grab my phone and start dialing the number for the local police department. The entitled dad grumbled loudly and left, dragging Jason with him. I told the cops Jason was here again. An officer came by later for the security footage and he just shook his head at the stupidity of Jason and his fatherly escort. A few days later, another cop stopped by to say Jason had been arrested and charged with trespassing. But unless we wanted to press charges for all the thefts, he wasn't going to be in jail for long. We decided not to prosecute, but we did get a 5-year extension on our trespass ban for Jason. Sadly, it wasn't the last time I saw him either. The kid never learned. I worked at one of those car lots where they sell you a $2,500 car in 60 or 90 inflated payments with interest so high you end up paying $25,000 for it. Office had the ridiculous selling sales manager business model where your boss competes with you for commission on sales. Thus, the boss's success means your financial deficits, and vice versa. She was a boss. No one else was above her in our lot. Anyone of higher rank was across town at the underwriting offices. She stole every sale she could get away with from me. When I was hired, she said, "Your success is my success." Liar. She hated every single sale I made because in her head, it should have been her extra commission on her next check. So finally a lady comes in and her name is under mine in our system. She's the only person I ever saw, the powers that be, replace the car she was buying when it broke down. She must have gotten a lawyer, but my boss has already set her up in her office. He lowers her voice to tell her she is so sorry, it's my sale. I am not that bad, but the lady of course thinks this is a terrible thing and demands to stay with her. My boss says, "Well, if you want me over her, that's a different story," and coaches her on switching salespeople 101. I am livid. I come back the next 2 days while deciding I'm quitting. This is the last straw. But the lady is really difficult and no matter what my boss does, she can't seem to satisfy her. Finally, she spends all day tracking down parts and having the car spruced up for the lady, down to cleaning it herself out there sweating and whining because the detail guy sucked. The lady comes in at the end of the day still unhappy and has her grown son with her. The boss is pissed, drops the nice sales lady routine and is outright trying to badger them into this car. I find out it's because there will be no commission on this sale since it's a replacement. Yes, they are being picky cause they can be. I've decided to quit, so I leave at closing time even though we were supposed to stay with each other if their sale runs late. These people have almost decided to get the car. They are standing in front of it talking. I get in my car and as I'm leaving, I pull beside them, roll my window down and say, "Don't let her bully you into buying anything you don't want to. It's your money, you don't have to get anything unless you want it, not because she decided for you." The man and woman are like, "I know, that's right." I said, "Keep looking until you find the right one. It's her job to show you every single car, if that's what you want." And driving away. I see my boss walk out smiling because she thinks it's over. And I sat long enough at the exit to see the smile wiped right off her stupid greedy face when she realized she'd be there whole night.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.